Roll call, please.
Commissioner Brems,
Here.
Commissioner Wattis,
Here.
Vice Chair Singleton,
Here.
Chair Robertson,
Here.
Commissioner Irving,
Here.
Commissioner Yocum,
Here.
and Commissioner Thomas.
Here.
Chair Robertson, we have a quorum.
Thank you. That'll take us to a call to the public. If you'd wish to speak, please complete a speaker card and submit it to the chairman. The procedures to follow if you address the commission are as follows. The commission requests that you express your ideas in 3 minutes or less and refrain from any personal attacks or derogatory statements about any city employee, a fellow citizen, or anyone else, whether in the audience or not. The chairman will limit discussions whenever he deems such an action is appropriate for proper conduct of the meeting. Do we have any speaker cards tonight? No speaker cards. Okay. Will still take us to the call to the public. If someone would like to address the commission in a general fashion, or if you would want to address a specific item on the agenda, we could do that at that time. Is there anybody who would like to address the commission at this time? Seeing none, we'll close the call to the public. Takes us to item 4, the minutes. We need approval, 4.1, approval of minutes 24-38.
Chair, I move approval of 2438 as submitted.
Second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Yocum. All in favor?
Aye.
The motion passes. 4.2, we need a similar motion for minutes for 24-39.
Move approval of 2439 as submitted.
Motion by Commissioner Irving. Second, please.
Second.
Second by Commissioner Singleton. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
That motion is approved. Takes us to item 5, our regular agenda. 5.1, PAD 24-2 is a public hearing. Major Planned Area Development Amendment for PAD 2402 Anderson Farms. The Planning and Zoning Commission shall discuss and take action on a request for a major amendment to the Anderson Farms Planned Area Development PAD Ordinance 22-02 for approximately 566 acres of land to modify the development land use plan and development standards. The property is generally located at the southeast corner of West Boland Road and North Hartman Road. This will be for discussion and action only. We'll have a presentation. Take it away, Alex.
Thank you, Chair Robertson. Chair, members of the Commission, I'm Alex Bosworth, planner here with the City of Maricopa. And tonight I have a major PAD amendment to present, case number PAD 2402 for Anderson Farms. For the details of the request, and just to give a little preface as to the nature of the project, Lennar Homes has come to us with a PAD amendment for the Anderson Farms subdivision. The PAD was originally approved back in 2022, and essentially what the PAD does is it grants Anderson Farms, this development above, a set of development standards that are unique to the site, and as well as it's pretty much its own zoning ordinance. So it gives them the flexibility to develop this subdivision in a unique fashion. Now, in terms of the amendment portion of the request, this amendment is adding the ability for Anderson Farms to plat for 35-foot wide lots within Phase 2 only. Phase 2 is about 53 acres in size, as noted above. And it also entails a change in land use on the northwest corner within Phase 9 to general commercial. It was previously zoned as medium-density residential, high-density residential, and mixed use, and now it'll be designated as general commercial. And please note that all other areas within this PAD will remain unchanged. Now, in terms of the development standards, Lennar Homes, the applicant, has come to the city with a new series of products, the Dream Series and the Cottage Series. These are small home products on smaller lots in an effort to bring more attainable housing to the city of Maricopa. And as noted above, the minimum lot widths for these homes only are 35 foot wide, and the rest of the development standards were tailored to fit those products themselves within Phase 2. And here is the development plan for Phase 2 only. This is a preliminary look at the preliminary plat, which is the landscape plan. This will be presented at a later meeting. This shows how the 35-foot wide lots will work within this phase. The density within this phase is at 7.32 dwelling units an acre. This is within the allowed maximum as prescribed by the general plan. And please note that the density will be offset as well by the elimination of residential on that commercial corner. So the total number of maximum units allowed within Anderson Farms will remain unchanged at 2,067 lots for the total build-out. And as you can see above, we have 2 large open space areas with 3 pocket parks that are provided for the residents, and they include amenities for the phase, as well as several connections to the Anderson Farms Paseo Trails Network, which was originally envisioned in the original PAD. Now, in terms of the proposed home products for these smaller lots, the Dream Series is the first product. These are attainable housing products on 35 by 85 foot wide lots, ranging from 740 square feet to 1,450 square feet. And please note that they do offer no garages on these homes. Our code currently requires 2 covered spaces. However, they are providing 2 uncovered spaces to keep the same number of cars off the street. And as you can see above, here's where there'll be parking within these homes. And something to note as well on these elevations, since they do not provide a garage, it eliminates the need to minimize the garage dominance of the homes, which is something that we always aim to achieve with traditional housing products within the city. However, with no car garage, we're able to bring the architecture and the several elements of the home toward the front, such as patios, trellises, covered porches, etc. And here's a streetscape exhibit for the Dream product. As you can see, the parking, 2 spaces off street, keeping the cars off the street. And the city engineer has also approved for parking on one side of the street only due to the width of the street and to accommodate for guests and other overflow parking as well. And here's the cottage series. This is a mix of 1-car garage and 2-car garage on the 35 by 100 foot lots. And these range from 967 square feet to 1,232 square feet. And they will be integrated as well within phase 2 with the no-car garage homes. And here's a streetscape exhibit for these 1-car and 2-car garage homes. As you can see here, just to help visualize how this will work on the local streets. And here are the 1-car garages, and here are the 2-car garages. Staff has analyzed this proposal, and we have determined that they do meet the standards and requirements within the general plan, as well as within the zoning ordinance that the city has provided, as well as the planned area development that the subdivision has currently. Now, in terms of public outreach, the applicant has met the required timeframes as prescribed by the zoning ordinance. Signs were posted, mailing notices were sent, as well as newspaper notices published. They did hold the neighborhood meeting on May 23rd here at the library just across City Hall. And there were a few attendees, mostly with just questions regarding the proposal and just sort of clarifications in general. And as such, staff will recommend that the Planning Commission approve Anderson Farms Major PAD Amendment, PAD 2402. And I'll be happy to answer any questions, and it'll be open for discussion.
Thank you for your presentation, Alex. Commission, questions? Who wants to go first?
I'd be glad to.
Go ahead, James.
Yeah, I have a little concern. Our city code presently calls for 2 covered parking spots. They're going to give 2 uncovered, and your comment says it meets the intent. I guess my concern is I don't see how we can say uncovered is covered. I mean, shouldn't that be handled through a variance? I mean, to make it clean, because they're just 2 different things.
Yes, Commissioner Irving. So for our zoning ordinance currently requires 2 covered spaces.
Right.
Off-street spaces. However, there is no requirement for uncovered spaces, as what we see with traditional driveways. So the intent of the code is to pretty much have 2 cars off the street, which these homes do provide. And in terms of how we process that, that is within the PAD. It's enveloped within the PAD, within this amendment. And the PAD grants the subdivision its own set of zoning regulations, which one of those regulations is parking. So they are requesting 2 uncovered spaces within this amendment.
Yeah, I'm just going by your words, and it says the city code on page 3 of 6. You know, those aren't my words, that's what it says here.
That's correct, Commissioner Irving.
So, again, I have no problem with doing it. I guess I was just asking, technically, is it best just to go ahead and be clear and give a variance as opposed to saying, well, we think it meets the intent? And I'm not against it's all I'm saying. It's just the technical way that's all I'm asking.
Chair Robertson, Commissioners, Commissioner Irving, it's not a variance request because they're not requesting a deviation or a variance from the specific code. The PAD allows them to request deviations for the standards, whether it be setbacks, lot lines, or in this case, the 2 required covered parking. So they're making that request to have this PAD have these set of standards. That would include 2 uncovered parking spaces per home.
If you're comfortable with it, I am.
So Nick or Alex, whoever wants to answer, just to be clear, the PAD actually allows for requests for variances based on a specific project.
That's correct, Chair Robertson. And just to
Deviation.
be clear, it's 2 different terms of art, but a variance is
Deviation.
outside P&Z's authority. The zoning code is what we're talking about, and that allows for this type of deviation.
Okay. Commissioner Singleton.
I have a couple questions. So I just want to out in the open of that 30 acres is going to be, for better or lack of better terms, rezoned to that commercial and for commercial only. Not, hey, somebody could come up later on and just build apartment complexes in that corner come, I don't know, 3 years later, right?
Vice Chair Singleton, that is correct. This 30-acre corner, it's being expanded from 15 to almost 30. Originally, it's been approved as high-density residential mixed use. However, with this amendment, that will be essentially rezoned from that to general commercial. So if they did want to, in the future, do multifamily, they'd have to come back with another amendment.
Perfect. And now my next question is about Bolin Road. In the current PAD as it stands, it says the proposed PAD will improve the contiguous half of the major street frontages along the PAD on a phase-by-phase basis. I understand that. As well as the full street improvement along Bolin Road. The half-street improvements includes Hartman Road, Murphy Road, Bolin Road, and Farrell Road. However, in the now proposed PAD, the language of the full street improvement of Bolin is removed. Can you kind of give us a walkthrough on why that language is removed?
Yes, Vice Chair Singleton, members of the commission, allow me to go back on the slides just so we're all familiar with the area. So Bowen Road is on the north side of this at the very top. So currently, with this amendment, Bowen Road will be extended only along the frontage of Phase 9, which will be the commercial. However, due to several factors such as the MSIDD canal and the ED3 electrical substation, as well as that tract being owned by the Tortosa HOA, Bowen Road cannot be continued. However, the city engineer has analyzed this, and we've determined that Anderson Farms Boulevard, which bisects the subdivision, can't serve as the east-west connection from Murphy down to Hartman. And Farrell Road is also going to be improved as well as part of the subdivision.
I have a question.
Anyone else?
I have a question.
Reese.
Thank you. You mentioned parking on one side. This is leading to emergency vehicles being able to fit through, specifically a fire truck. You talked about parking on one side. I'm not very well versed with how big my street is. There's cars on both sides, and I can get through. Are these streets narrower than average streets in our community now? That parking on one side is required just to be neighborly? And we know the people are going to park where they want to park. Is that going to be an issue when it comes to emergency vehicles getting through?
Commissioner Thomas, members of the commission. So whenever a local street is narrower than usual, we do mandate parking on just one side of the street. And that's handled through, for example, no parking signs on the other side, as well as the HOA. It'll be the HOA's responsibility to help enforce that as well, just to ensure emergency access, fire access, just so vehicles can pass through. That's correct. So it'd be up to the HOA.
Commissioner Yocum.
I have a general comment as to what the state is trying to do now as far as decision-making with zoning. A lot of attention has been given to apartments, but the primary thrust that the state is really involved in is creating more affordable housing, be it apartments, houses, or whatever. And I think that when we see what the changes are that are being requested by the developer, they are providing more homes for less money, and that kind of is in the spirit of what the state is trying to do. We have the NIMBYs all over the place, and I think this is one piece that we could use to demonstrate to anybody who wants to look at it that instead of building 3,500 square foot homes, we're building 13 to 1,900 square foot homes, and they're not going to cost $450,000. I believe the text said that most of them would be under $300,000. So I think that that's a feather in our cap when we go and we have to talk to the state and they say, what are you doing? We can use this as one of the examples of what we're doing.
Anyone else? Alex, I'd just like to follow up on Commissioner Thomas's comment of the road parking. Does that one side parking apply to the pass-through of Anderson Farms Road, which is now the connector road?
Are you referring to Anderson Farms Boulevard, Chair?
Yes.
Yeah, so that would be a collector road, and at the moment, I did not see any on-street parking on that,
Okay.
Which will be similar to every other collector that we have in the city.
Okay, just wanted clarification on that. Any further comments?
I'd like to make a motion.
Go right ahead.
Public hearing.
I'm sorry,
Public hearing.
public hearing, sorry about that.
Anybody like to address the commission on this matter? Seeing none, we'll close the public hearing.
Now, may I make my
You may
motion
make your
that we
motion.
approve?
We have a motion approved by Commissioner Yocum. Do we
Yeah,
have a second?
PAD 24-02.
Commissioner Brem seconds. All in favor?
Aye.
Against?
Aye.
All right, that takes us to item 5.2, Planning Commission update. Stephen Kenna and Wyatt Clark, the City of Maricopa Engineering Department, will lead a discussion focusing on the details of traffic impact analysis. Discussion only. Take it away, gentlemen.
Can you guys hear me? Okay. Power button. Good evening, commissioners. Some of you may already recognize me from a few months ago when I gave an impromptu presentation on traffic impact analyses. My name is Stephen Kenna. I'm one of the city engineers with Development Services for the City of Maricopa. To my right this evening is my associate.
Good evening, commissioners. I am Wyatt Clark. I am an engineering intern working with the Maricopa Department of Development Services.
So Wyatt's actually entering his senior year at Maricopa High School. He's been interning with the engineering division under my mentorship since the spring. He's a very bright student that wants to pursue a future career in civil engineering. So to give him much due credit for assisting with the creation of this presentation, I've kindly asked him to present alongside me so you can see for yourself the passion he has for traffic engineering and the great deal he's learned in his short time with us. Today we'll be presenting on the requirements of a traffic impact analysis, which we require of every development in the city. A common concern we hear often is, how does the city plan to deal with traffic as we continue to grow? Do we have a plan for all this growth? This presentation aims to answer this question and shed light on the city's approach to both regional and localized traffic planning and management. We will briefly discuss regional transportation planning before we dive in depth into the requirements of a typical traffic impact analysis report.
The first major component of Maricopa's regional planning is the Area Transportation Plan, or ATP. It serves as the city's own long-term transportation plan, and it undergoes cyclical updates as the city grows. The latest version of the Area Transportation Plan was issued in 2017. The city is currently working with a consultant to reissue the ATP, estimated to be complete either this year or in 2025. The Area Transportation Plan addresses all of Maricopa's municipal planning area, or essentially all of Maricopa's current and potential future land. It establishes long-range plans for the development of streets, transit services, and pedestrian and bicycle facilities. It plans for the size, layout, and necessary capacity of Maricopa's future arterial roads as the city continues to grow. Beyond the ATP, the City of Maricopa is also a member of the Maricopa Association of Governments. MAG is a metropolitan planning organization consisting of 27 cities and towns, 3 native nations, Maricopa County, portions of Pinal County, and the Arizona Department of Transportation to better coordinate transportation planning all across the Phoenix metro area. Essentially, what being a member of MAG means is that Maricopa is not simply alone in the desert making its own decisions. The city is actively coordinating with cities all across the valley to ensure cohesion across municipal and county lines.
Being a member of MAG gives us access to their Transportation Data Management System, or the TDM, which simulates and forecasts traffic patterns and changes across the Phoenix metropolitan area. To better plan for future transportation needs, MAG collects and analyzes data to provide forecasts using sophisticated computer modeling. This is a state-of-the-art data analysis tool. It makes regional traffic data and analysis tools readily available to you and me, or to the professional community and the public. MAG continuously updates information about traffic volumes and speeds on major roads using this data that was collected by MAG and MAG member agencies, including the City of Maricopa. The city feeds development data to MAG annually to keep the model updated. The TDM is further divided into separate transportation area zones, which give us detailed employment, land use, density, growth, and other socioeconomic information about specific areas within the city. So I know it's a bit difficult to read the table at this moment on the screen. However, this is a snapshot of what the transportation area zones within the city look like. So they're broken down into sub-areas labeled by a TAS ID number. And as you scroll to the right in this table, you can see on the horizon years, obviously this originated in 2014, but it extends all the way out to the year 2040. Again, it provides us with the number of households, the number of people employed, and other socioeconomic data that assist us and that help build their models so that we're not just looking at the current year, 2024, but that we're looking a couple of decades ahead as the city prospectively grows.
To summarize Maricopa's regional planning, the Area Transportation Plan is Maricopa's own long-range transportation plans for the development of streets, transit, and pedestrian facilities. In addition to the Area Transportation Plan, Maricopa's membership in MAG ensures cohesion across municipal and county lines and gives the city access to detailed traffic modeling and socioeconomic data that builds into our plan and vice versa as the city's general plan and ongoing developments feed into MAG's regional model.
This moves us into Maricopa's transportation planning and management for individual developments, which utilizes the traffic impact analysis report.
Traffic impact analysis reports zoom in onto new developments individually, such as a new restaurant or subdivision, and analyze the impact they will have on surrounding traffic now and into the future. They must be prepared by licensed traffic engineers and are required for nearly all new developments in Maricopa.
Traffic impact analysis reports allow the city to plan for needed infrastructure improvements on a more local scale than that of the area transportation plan. The area transportation plan uses the city's general plan, current zoning information, and projected economic growth to set the precedent of laying out the region's network of arterial roadways, whereas the traffic impact analysis report refines the analysis on a per development basis, examining the local needs for distribution roads, traffic control, and site access management. Each new project must identify a scope and give a detailed description of the proposed development. The city's report requirements differ by development. The level of analysis or depth of the scope of work is based on the anticipated peak hour trips generated by the project. Projects that generate less than 100 peak hour trips require only a traffic impact letter. Projects that generate between 100 and 500 peak hour trips require a limited report, while projects that generate more than 500 peak hour trips require a standard report, which encompasses all the requirements we will be covering in this presentation.
As part of the traffic impact analysis process, turn movement counts are collected from intersections nearby the proposed development. This gives a clear picture of traffic volume, peak hours, distribution, and movement. This example here is a turn movement graph illustrating how many cars pass through the intersection at Honeycutt Road and John Wayne Parkway. You can see here that going northbound, there's a through count and a right turn count. During the AM peak hour, the engineer recorded that 1,056 cars went through the intersection north in the morning. In the PM peak hour, 909 cars went north through the intersection.
Peak hours typically coincide with the commuter rush hour and are determined by the largest number of turn movement counts in that day. Even with computer modeling and the algorithms for estimating trip generation, which we'll get to in a minute, observing and recording turn movement counts provides a clear picture of when and where stress is being placed at intersections, because it is empirical instead of theoretical.
With turn movement data collected, reports then estimate what impact the future development will have using national standard figures from the Institute of Transportation Engineers. The ITE's manual is used by tens of thousands of municipalities nationwide and provides trip generation values for various land uses and scenarios. For example, as you can see here, a pharmacy with a drive-through window is estimated to generate more trips per square foot than one without. You can see here on the graph you have your type and then your unit of measure being square foot in this case, and then trips per unit being on the very far right there. And then an example here in town would be the CVS on the corner of John Wayne Parkway. So measuring retail by square footage might seem too generalized, but the ITE accounts for this. Quick service restaurants generate a high level of trips despite their size. For example, on the left there, look at the trips per unit for the coffee shop with drive-through and no indoor seating, and the home improvement superstore. Our Dutch Bros is very busy despite being no more than 1,000 square feet, whereas a home improvement superstore such as the under construction Lowe's still generates a modest amount of traffic but occupies a building 1/100th the size. A Lowe's will generate 233 trips in its peak hour, while a Dutch Bros still generates a considerable 83 in a building that's only 1/100th the size. The trips per unit also considers factors such as retention. Meeting in the middle there is the fast food restaurant with drive-through window. The fast food restaurant has indoor seating to retain some of its trips for longer, and people in the home improvement superstore are going to be in there for longer shopping, so its generation overall per square foot is lower. Some land uses, such as subdivisions and apartments, are calculated using the number of dwelling units instead of square footage. Generally, multifamily apartments are expected to have fewer residents and generate less traffic than subdivisions. After the retail explanation, one may think that this should be reversed because of density. However, one dwelling unit is one apartment or one house. Most apartments in Maricopa are 1 or 2 bedrooms, while most houses have 3 to 5. Even if not every bedroom is filled, or perhaps it's an elderly couple who is only in the house for part of the year, it is best practice to assume the worst case, most traffic intense scenario.
After the number of new trips has been calculated, the engineer estimates the distribution of traffic created by the development. Where are all these new cars coming and going? That's what I would like to know. The total traffic generated by a development is divided and allocated onto the roads connecting to the site. Since the development doesn't exist yet, the trip distribution is theoretical, yet it's based on the most likely routes traveled by the population. This could be based on convenience, presence of traffic signals, and safe access to the site. Trip distribution allows the city to better understand which roadways and intersections are the most directly impacted, and if improvements such as turn lanes or traffic signals become warranted. Now, you may be asking yourself then, how accurate can a traffic engineer be in proposing where exactly are all these cars going to scatter throughout the city, onto which roads? Well, that's actually where I myself and the city engineer come in. You'll be pleased to know that we're both residents here of Maricopa, and so we know what works and what doesn't. I can't tell you how many times that we've received traffic impact analysis reports where the traffic engineer will propose, most of the cars are going to go down this road, and Eduardo, the city engineer, and myself will tell them, no, that's simply not true. Everyone knows the shortcut here. Everyone's going to cut through this area. And so we tell them to reallocate the distribution of trips and actually plan for reality and not the theory. So to better understand how all this data comes together, it is visualized here in the timeline here on the screen. Turn movement counts make up what is known as background traffic, or the existing traffic. At build-out, a project must account for the background traffic plus the new traffic generated by the development. But it doesn't stop here. Factoring a compounded annual population growth of at least 3%, the traffic impact analysis looks ahead 5 years at what we call the horizon year. The traffic impact analysis examines the ultimate condition by superimposing the existing conditions onto the build-out, plus future growth. This is especially important for multi-stage or phase developments where project completion is still years out.
After all of this data collection, intersections now at build-out and in the future are graded using a nationally recognized A through F system, which classifies them based on the level of delay that they cause drivers. You can think of it like a school grading system, however, E is added to the system. A is complete free flow, while F is total gridlock.
The traffic impact analysis must also evaluate how and where the project connects with roadways to ensure access points and drive-throughs are placed in safe and efficient locations. This is called site access management. Some important factors to consider include visibility, turn lanes, and intersection conflicts. Poor site access, such as the south driveway to CVS pictured here, conflicts with queuing at the nearby major intersection of John Wayne Parkway and Smith Hankey, because the intersections are just too close together. There are design standards regarding the allowable distance between intersections. This can influence whether a driveway must allow only a right in and right out turn movement. Another example of site access management is along John Wayne Parkway. There are so many businesses that would not allow for many individual driveways, so instead access is combined into shared driveways, and there is a continuous right turn lane or deceleration lane that extends down John Wayne Parkway. This allows for the safe and efficient movement of cars traveling at a higher rate of speed. Therefore, it is very crucial to consider site access management for all new developments.
Finally, traffic impact analysis reports analyze the necessity of new traffic lights, stop signs, and other traffic control devices. Traffic signals are regulated by the Federal Highway Administration and must meet strict warrants before installation is permitted. When used unnecessarily, they can counterintuitively increase collisions, congestion, and delay in many ways people might not initially expect. Beyond traffic signals, the traffic impact analysis reports also looks at queuing, turn lanes, and the timing of traffic signals themselves. Are queuing areas long enough as to not spill over and harm the flow of traffic during peak hours? Are turn lanes or protected turns needed? can the signal cycle be lengthened, shortened, or reallocated to account for busier movements or improve traffic flow? These are all factors analyzed in the traffic control needs section and ultimately build onto the actual improvement recommendations.
If not immediately, a time frame or condition may be given for when certain traffic improvements, such as a traffic signal, should be constructed using data from the area transportation plan and the future outlook or horizon year of the traffic impact analysis. An increase in the population, which of course means more vehicles, could trigger additional improvements once a development has reached complete build-out. Moreover, analyzing the 5-year outlook with population growth factored in yields a more complete picture of the ultimate performance of an intersection. In other words, a traffic signal may only become warranted at a later phase of a multi-stage development, or when a certain population is reached. For example, the intersection of Smith-Enke Road and Chase Drive at the lakes at Rancho El Dorado warranted a signal after the latter phase of development was completed. The development started construction around 2010, more than a decade before the new signal was constructed last year as part of Phase 3. I, as a resident, can say that I definitely appreciate it when I want to make that left turn onto Smith-Enke Road every single morning. In conclusion, the city indeed has a plan. Traffic impact analysis reports allow the city to plan for needed infrastructure improvements at the local level, while the area transportation plan uses the city's general plan, current zoning information, and projected economic growth to lay out the region's network of arterial roadways. The data collection and analysis of each traffic impact analysis allows for comprehensive planning for individual developments and the impacts they have on their surroundings. Their data and conclusions ultimately build on the area transportation plan and Maricopa's regional transportation management. At this time, we'll take questions from the commissioners.
Thank you very much, Stephen and Wyatt. That was a great presentation, very enlightening. Couple of things I wrote down, but I'll defer to the commission first and for their questions. Anybody? Commissioner Brem.
All right. This seems very well thought out. It's an excellent presentation. One of the questions that I have really does relate actually to the congestion caused by the timing of the traffic lights. I work in Tempe. I've been there, for 15 years, and I've made the commute multiple times during the week, and have seen, the ebb and flow of things. Is there anything that can be done about the timing of the lights? It feels like, just from non-academically looking at this, there might be some timing issues sometimes where the lights actually restrict traffic flow and make it back up. I mean, how many times have been driving southbound at 347 and the left-hand turn lane into Rancho is goofy, and you get backed up, all the way up to the gravel pit. And so I'm just kind of curious, when we look at these things, how often are they looked at and updated on kind of those bigger scales where we have little problems that then create huge, backups for people that really probably get under a lot of people's skin?
Absolutely. Thank you for the question, Commissioner Brems. So I could start off by saying that our Department of Public Works is the one who's in charge of traffic control management. So all our signals, they have their own in-house signal technicians and personnel who work on our roads. Every now and then you'll see a traffic signal with the cabinets open on the corner, and you'll see a City of Maricopa work truck there on the corner with guys tinkering with the lighting. Now, I myself am not responsible for directing their timing of the signals. However, again, going back to being a resident, I'm constantly fielding, kind of like customer service, I'm constantly fielding feedback that I receive from neighbors. It could be my own family who lives here in town. It might even be my own feedback. Taking as an example, on my commute here into work, as short as it is, I did notice once that one of the red indicators on the traffic signal at Honeycutt was out, and so immediately I sent an email to our Public Works Director and took a quick picture. Of course, I was sitting at the stoplight, but I said to him, hey, this light is out, and you know what? It was fixed the next day, which I thought was impeccable timing. We do have a city traffic engineer who works for the Department of Public Works as well. He's relatively new, but I will say that we do have signal timing sheets on file. I can definitely understand the concern that some of the lights in town may seem like they take forever, and they do. Let me just say that. So this kind of goes into the rabbit hole, which I won't dive into, but it's called Intelligent Transportation Devices, or Intelligent Transportation Systems, or ITS for short. And so typically traffic signals you'll see various cameras, you'll see other sensors. I've gotten asked a lot, is that camera taking a photo of me, running the red light? The answer is no. Those are actually sensors. They operate very much like how loop detectors sometimes saw cut into the road do, which is that they can analyze a line of cars at a signal, and that just enhances the intelligence of the brain, which lives in that cabinet on the corner. And so therefore, some of our signals here in town are intelligently programmed with equipment and signal timing sheets to assess the situation and know when to give the green light if someone isn't coming from a different approach. But I will say that some of the other signals in town, because some of our signal infrastructure is old, and without capital improvement funding or a project to address that need specifically, we're not going to have all of our signals on the same intelligent system. Therefore, what I have observed myself, sitting at a couple of traffic lights, I'll notice that they're somewhat intelligent in the sense that they'll give priority between certain hours of the day. So I do notice that during the peak hours, a much longer green is given to, I guess you could say, the primarily used approach to the intersection. What comes to mind is the intersection of Honeycutt and White and Parker, just down the road from here. I'll sit there for a couple of minutes while I watch all the traffic coming from Tortosa and beyond, on their way to work at about 7 o'clock in the morning. So you know what, that doesn't even make me mad, because I realize, priority is given here to the majority movement. But to answer your question, we do have signal timing sheets, so it's not arbitrary, but not every single signal is quite yet there. But there is technology that exists to get it there. And as we do request new traffic signals, we are requiring those intelligent devices be added to them.
Awesome, thank you.
I'd just like to maybe add to that conversation just a little bit. It was a big deal for me a few years ago. A lot of talk about John Wayne Parkway in particular before the city took over management, and that the technology is rather old, that the intersections don't talk to each other, that some are looped, some are timed, some are visual. Is that an accurate way to think about it, that it's just old technology, and the lights along John Wayne, say from Edison to the North City limits, it's probably a few years off before we see that able to talk to each other and to actually sync up?
Yes, I do know that the city's Public Works Department they did have a project very recently where I believe they were installing devices on them, so that could get better. One thing that I do want to note is I believe ADOT turned over to us, or they may not have turned it over yet, that very first signal in town at Lakeview, where I'm constantly making my left turn to get into Rancho El Dorado, and John Wayne Parkway. So that one they'll eventually turn over to us, and then that will give us control pretty much north to south within city limits of all the different signals.
Commissioner Irvin.
Yeah, first of all, excellent data, very, very helpful. I think the one thing I wish, can we get copies so when we're constantly bombarded with this, but wonderful job. I really like the grading system. Can you tell us if there is I think it was F was the worst, is there, if you hit that, what does that trigger? What happens if you, for instance, you go to high school? Well, I'm over there a lot. I make sure I get out of there by 2:50 because you know what happens. So is there anything that would trigger something that would say, okay, we need to possibly look an alternative? I was just curious.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
So with newer developments, as an example, that kind of gives us a clean slate, right?
Okay.
Because we're planning ahead at that moment. We're planning for now. We're planning for the horizon years. And so when I, for example, review the traffic impact analysis, I'm looking at that level of service of each of the impacted intersections, which in the scope of work spans about a mile radius from the project.
All right.
And so, as the city grows exponentially, some of that is behind us. Some of the signals were installed many, many years ago. And so what it would take for that would be to, analyze those signals let's say, an annual basis, and we do. So the city actually does record those turn movement counts, just to record how many cars pass through each approach to the intersection. It could be northbound, it could be a dedicated right or left. We record the number of cars, and we're constantly feeding that data as the latest information that we have on file to the traffic engineers, proposing Lowe's as an example. And so we will still require at times that, well, we do actually require with the final report that they record their own turn movement counts, and that they plug in their algorithms, they do the horizon year, and within each report they are analyzing the level of service of that intersection. So at intersections where we know that it's currently failing, sometimes there isn't anything that we can't rely on the developers at that point if they're long gone. And so that would take an act by the city or Public Works Department to either readjust the signal timing, which I've seen them do quite a bit, or you can even analyze other measures, because beyond that, sometimes you may need a longer turn lane, a dedicated turn lane, just to accommodate more queuing or stacking of vehicles. Other measures like that, they do take a reanalysis later on. But our hope when we receive a new traffic impact analysis, taken as an example, Home Depot or Lowe's, whatever we've already received and approved, that's under construction right now, we've already done our due diligence, we've reviewed the reports, we've looked at the levels of services of the intersections, and we've already made that call on whether the developer warrants, or the development, I should say, warrants a traffic signal, some kind of stop control devices, perhaps a dedicated turn lane coming off the main road. We do look at that ahead, and then we do kind of use that 20/20 vision, hindsight vision later on to readjust later on down the line.
What about schools? I mean, we know I'm just, again, we all know at most schools, depending upon the time of the backup. I guess I'm just curious about the ability for Public Works to work with the schools, the public, on if there are any other solutions. I know they've made some, like at Saddleback, which is really good. I was just curious, because it's obviously, we know the days, Monday through Friday, we know the times, we know the backup. You've been in those areas. Again, I was just curious about creative, how, with all that data and what we know, how creative can you really get?
So, like you said, how creative can you really get?
Yeah,
because if a footprint's already built out, what more can you do?
Okay,
Can't
yeah.
necessarily widen road. However, yeah, we can take a look at that, and that's an area where you would give possibly a higher green priority to a
Okay.
different approach, considering the peak hour of when the school releases or when they start in the morning. I will say that when we do get new developments for schools, we're constantly talking to the traffic engineer. They'll propose one thing and we'll say, no, we know that this backs up into the right-of-way here. We want you and you yourself to come out here, get your notebook and record the number of turn movements you see here. So we're on them about that. I think that, optimistically speaking, with a development such as Lowe's coming in, there's going to be adjustments to that intersection. There's going to be added turn lanes. And so I'm optimistic that, with the requirements that the developer is going to have to do to improve that intersection, we could take care of it now,
Outstanding. Just great information.
Commissioner Thomas.
Not a question, but a comment. Was it Matt, young man from Wyatt? Excellent job. The report, your presentation, absolutely excellent. To your turn comment number going into Lowe's, I can tell you right now, you're about 2% off of the turns I'm going to be making into Aldi's. So you need to correct that immediately. Thank you, though. Great job.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Commissioner Singleton.
I got two questions. I think one of them you kind of covered, but you had mentioned you had shown good site access versus poor site access. What is the process that you guys go through for addressing something further down the road for a poor site access like the CVS? That's my first question. And then the second one is, does this model take into account the public transportation that is available for residents? For example, I know the Met Bus is about to go through another report, I guess, a study for what it needs to provide. And so I'm just curious on what that collaboration might look like in order to potentially reduce traffic count in certain high traffic areas.
Good question. Two-part question. So remembering the first part, funny that you should mention the poor site access management. I chose CVS as a very specific example because Public Works is about to commence their improvement project to fix that situation and bring that driveway further away from that main intersection of John Wayne Parkway and Smith Yankee. So unfortunately, and this can take years down the line, you know, hindsight is 20/20, right? And we can all play Monday morning quarterback. But, you know, the good thing is that, okay, you know, the city has such a very good hefty budget that down the line, we encumber funding to address those concerns. And every city does. I've worked for 3 different municipalities now. And so taking that as an example, in hindsight, we go back and correct it. Nonetheless, when we see that a development that has not yet built and is an entitlement in planning and zoning, that they want to come in and we know that this is going to cause a disaster, we do put the onus on them as their responsibility, their funding, through development impact fees, you know, what have you. They are responsible for correcting or remedying that situation before it becomes a problem. And to answer the second part of your question regarding the Met, sometimes called the Comet for City of Maricopa, it's my understanding, I had the same question as you, so I used to commute to Phoenix every day, downtown Phoenix for City of Phoenix, and that was quite a commute, and I was pretty jealous to hear that coworkers of mine could hop on the bus from Gilbert and other parts of the valley that were almost equally as far, about 30 to 40 minutes from downtown. And hearing that I had that option, but then I didn't any longer have the Valley Metro is what they called it, you know, I asked those same questions. I will say that right now, just due to the size of the city and just kind of how spread out we are, growing pains, right? So we will get there someday. The planning area for Maricopa is enormous. We extend from, you know, practically Lakeview Drive at the edge of Gila River Indian community, and we extend as far south as the 8 freeway in the eventual plan. But that's decades from now. We're looking at a population of, instead of 70,000 people, hundreds of thousands of people, right? So the growing pains are that right now we do have the Met, which I think is a wonderful service. I think it's really cool that you can dial a ride. I don't know if you can do that in a bigger city. So I guess we could hang on to that nice novelty while we are still a small city. But until we grow to that size, we don't yet have a transit department as, say, like a Tempe or a Phoenix. We don't have a light rail, we don't have a bus. But that isn't to say that we won't get there yet. However, while we're not excluding that from the area transportation plan, it's not something that we're immediately looking at right now, simply because the need isn't there yet.
Thank you.
Any further comments? Commissioner Brim.
I had one more question. When you're talking about schools, do you work with them at all to assess their traffic patterns for like pickup and drop off? Sometimes they feel a little ad hoc, and I'm just kind of curious if that's something you've ever worked with the schools on before.
Yes, we do. So I am familiar with a couple of the various principals and superintendents, Mrs. Lopeman and the others. I believe there's a quarterly meeting where the city meets with MUSD, and not just the public school district, but also the charter schools. So you'll see A+ and Legacy and the others there. We do meet with them on a quarterly basis. Police is there. And they'll bring with them their patrolling officers who can give you that firsthand account of being there every day and witnessing to the dangers associated with people perhaps not yielding to students in certain areas. So we do actually have, it's called Safe Paths to School. So that's one of the documents that we've created. I believe it's actually required, but you know, we've created that, and it gives the safe path of where you know, students are released from school, volunteer crossing guards, and kind of informal crossing locations, which of course use existing crosswalks to get students safely home. So we are coordinating with them on a relatively frequent basis, every 3 months, quarterly.
Anyone else? Okay, again, I've got a couple little comments, mostly comments. This is great information. We get a lot of comments about traffic on every major plan that comes. Everybody's worried about traffic. And understanding that warrants are federally regulated and we have to abide by them. We just can't get a petition together and say we're putting up a traffic light. It could be years away or it could be sooner. So I'm glad that you explained that, because it's important for the public to understand that they just can't come here and petition us for it. There has to be certain things that happen ahead of time. The traffic impact analysis, I burdened myself one time to read the 200 pages of one of them before a commission meeting, and I swore I would never do that again because I didn't hardly understand it. Now I can understand it more, but we do get the staff recommendation about that, and we rely on the staff as understanding and coordinating with you guys that it is working, that what you're proposing is okay. So we do rely on that more than we actually study the analysis, at least for me. I don't know about the rest of you. I've looked at one. It's a pretty daunting task. So, you know, getting the staff recommendation on a particular traffic analysis, we rely heavily on, and now I have more confidence in that, understanding that this is really data-driven and pretty specific, more than we realize. So I appreciate that. You did mention for your future planning, you have about a 3% annual growth. Is that an accurate number?
So that's a good question. We know that sometimes that can fluctuate. With us, obviously, it's going to be a bigger number. I will tell you that the city engineer and I have actually been telling traffic engineers to use more of a 4 or a 5%.
Yeah.
I threw 3% in there because I didn't want to jump the gun and say, yeah, we're growing at 5%. So I figured I'd kind of keep that number a little bit tame, because typically it would be about 3%. But what we do also look at is, again, kind of the culmination of the MAG data from their model, putting that all together. And then, of course, as we update that MAG data on an annual basis, through meeting directly with the Maricopa Association of Governments, they have a project manager and a whole team dedicated to keeping that model up to date.
Great. And lastly, I think I know of 2 intersections in the city that I've come across that have a left turn flashing yellow arrow. We could use more of them in the city.
I'm sorry, could you repeat the last part of your question?
Left turn flashing yellow arrow.
Yes.
You know, you either have green or red right now.
Yeah.
I think there's 2 intersections that actually have a left turn flasher where you go when it's clear.
I really like that
some more
innovation. I really like that innovation because it actually cautions people to think before they turn.
Yeah.
It's the exact same thing as having a solid green where you could yield to make a left turn. It's telling you this is unprotected. Unless it's a solid green, you know that there will be traffic coming the opposite direction. What I really like about that, though, and what you may notice as you come across a few of these in town, whether that's here or Chandler or Scottsdale, wherever you are, is there's actually a very specific science to those, and it's called a delayed yellow. And so what you'll notice potentially, if you ever want to kind of, you know, geek out and just kind of analyze the traffic patterns for a minute while you're sitting there at the light, right? You'll actually notice that the rest of the through movements will turn red before that blinking yellow goes to a solid yellow and turns to a red. And what that does, it's a delay, because science, data has actually been collected and observations have been done that if that light turns yellow and goes to red with the rest of the movement, someone who's very determined to make that, you know, get through the intersection before it turns red might even run it by a few seconds. There's a very big risk of a crash occurring when someone who's sitting in the middle of the intersection who has yielded that time and is about to make a left turn, there's a very big chance of a collision there. And so with that guarantee of it might be 2-3 second delay, the through movement will go to red so that, okay, at that point, anyone who's gone through the intersection is clearly running the red light, which they shouldn't be doing. And then it gives that couple second delay for the person, maybe 1 or 2 cars, to actually make that left turn. So it serves 2 purposes of safety and also getting those cars through the intersection. instead of having to wait for the next cycle.
So is there a process to analyze intersections to determine if they're a candidate for delayed flashing yellow left turn?
Yeah, there's calculations for it and algorithms. He actually got into it a little bit. It's kind of cool. I shared with him some of my coursework on that. But yeah, I will say that there's definitely an analysis. There's calculations behind it. And I will say that you'll probably see a little bit more of it because
Perfect.
it's a very safe alternative
Yeah, I
than
like
to
it.
just allowing a yield on green.
Okay. No other comments?
Thank you very much.
Great presentation. Good luck, Wyatt, with your career advancement. You're off to a good start. Looks like you
Remember
got
us when you get your PhD in civil engineering?
He's hunting for your job.
Thank you.
If there's no further action, we'll take a motion to adjourn. What? Report from staff? Thank you.
I like the motion to adjourn.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. First and foremost, I just can't thank Steve and Wyatt enough for the time and the effort that they put into this. We've been in the 2.5, almost 3 years now I've been here. Traffic's always been a big topic of conversation. So not only for my own educational purposes and y'all's purposes, but just to get it out there to the public that this is the process that we're going through and the time and effort that they put into that. And when we bring it back to you, when we've, what that means when we say we've looked at that TIA and we concur with their conclusions. I can't thank them enough. Steve and I got to talking about this, and he was anxious and happy to do it. And then to bring Wyatt into it, who's been just a blessing from, it's just it's really good. And so I can't thank them enough. Second thing is our next meeting is going to be the 22nd of July. We don't have anything tracking for the 8th, and that's the day after the 4th of July weekend, so I think that's probably pretty good that we're not going to be able to do that. And with that, I would say thank you all very much for your time and efforts, and have a great, safe, happy holiday weekend next week. And we'll see you on the 22nd.
Thank you.
We're adjourned.
And be careful going home. It sounds like we got some rain.